Good morning, everybody in Facebook land. So, I remember writing about the Human Genome Project in my conspiracy days, right? Because I was trying to figure out, I don't know, all the different programming and stuff. But I never, I knew what was going on, but I didn't really have the words for it, and I couldn't make all the different connections with everything that was going on. And so, hold on. All right. And so, um, and so it was just like, okay, I read about the Human Genome Project, and it was more about all the different cancers and all the things that, I'm trying to figure out, what's going on with this thing with cancer and all this stuff. And I figured out that viruses are cancer, and then I'm realizing that like all these different viruses, like the adenovirus causes obesity. And like, okay, so what happened? Like, why didn't they have these viruses way back in, like these type of viruses that have that type of body type back in the Neanderthal days? I didn't see any big obese Neanderthals, right? I'm thinking like, okay. And I didn't remember seeing, too much in the old photos of way back when in the 1800s, 1700s and pictures. I mean, yeah, people were obese, I guess, but it makes you wonder, it makes you just wonder where all these viruses came from. But regardless of where they came from, it almost doesn't even matter. But the Human Genome Database is basically, it's a viral genome database. It's a variant database. The splicing and dicing of genes, which holds the viral programming. And so I remember looking for the fat gene. I remember looking for all these different genes a couple of years ago. And I didn't make the connection that viruses run the genes. Viruses run the bacteria. Viruses run viruses run other viruses, yes. Viruses, parasites, protozoa, proteins, fungus, and bacteria. And so viruses run everything. And so, yes, obesity is programmed, underweight is programmed, all the different diseases that you have, yes, are programming, they are evolution. We have been bioengineered. You can't deny it. I mean, you can deny it, but I mean, just like anything, you can deny the sky is blue, but it's still blue. So it's like, there's no point in denying something that just exists. But the different words for the viruses is what trips people up. It's what tripped me up. It had me go down another rabbit hole that, okay, it's worth going down the rabbit hole, but then you're not making the connections. And then you're like off in another land, and what are you trying to prove? And that's really what I was dealing with is, what am I proving here, and what am I trying to figure out? And so then I realized, yes, viruses, they run everything. You have viruses for everything in biodiversity. They program people's bodies. Some people's bodies have hypertension. Other people's bodies have cardiovascular issues. Other people's bodies have so many, you name the disease, a virus is attached to it. Now, just because you have the disease doesn't mean that that's going to kill you. It's just the fact that it's a conflicting programming that the body needs to adapt to and then kick out the excess proteins. That's all, what the body needs to do. It's not like you need to get antiviral for anything like that. I mean, you say you're obese, and then you're like, oh, I have the adenovirus. It means I got to go find a vaccine for the adenovirus. Like, no. What it is that your body must be able to adapt to these specific viruses that, yes, bring on these programmings, but then also release it. And so I noticed that my body was getting swollen. Well, you could say, well, because you weren't drinking enough water, and you were bloated because of all these different things. But why am I bloated? Because of viral programming. See, that's the crux of it all. It's the viral programming that you don't know how to adapt to and release the excess. Because everybody that goes to the medical holistic system, they try to find a cure for everything that makes them feel different. And maybe the body is trying to release that programming of obesity. maybe the body is trying to overcome the hypertension, but you don't want to feel that pain. So then you go to the doctor's office, you go to the holistic industry, you go anywhere where they then suppress the energy of evolution. So then you are stayed stuck in that cured state of which your body, yes, is obese, underweight, dealing with some kind of, cancer disease, chronic illness, autoimmune disorder. And you're kind of then not only in a cured state, but you're also in a cured state of decline because thermodynamics is always going to work against you if you're not actively replenishing, insulating, and adapting to the new programming. So yeah, you have viruses out there. Now you're like, okay, is it the vectors that are doing it? Well, I mean, here's the thing, the vectors come from the population, okay? They don't have these vectors if it wasn't for the fact that people were being afflicted, right? I mean, they didn't have, if they knew about the virus that came from overseas back in 2020, but yeah, they had patents for the COVID, but they didn't have really the specific therapeutic. So you can have a patent for something, but the therapeutic is then the next step. But where do you get the DNA for the therapeutics? Well, it has to come from the population. And so that's why everyone reacts differently to the virus, as well as all the different therapeutics, because it's how your biochemistry then is influenced by that viral entity. And so like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So, no matter what, even if you are around people that never were vectorized for that specific thing, they have been exposed to all the bioengineering. And it happened way, like, as soon as man was able to become civilized, like 2,000 years ago, humans have been bioengineered, and they've just gotten more advanced as biotech became more advanced, and they figure out how to stop the pain, or they do experiments. I mean, look, the Human Genome Database is a database of which they do the experiments, they isolate certain genes that they know, can be probably stable with certain things, and they sell it to biotech. Biotech does all their tests with like yeast cells, okay? And the yeast cells are prototypes of the human because they have all the different components of a human cell, of course, because the fungus cell, the yeast cell has DNA, it has viruses in it. It has all the different things that you'd want to know how the human body may react or how an animal may react to specific influences, stimulus. And so first things are tested on a yeast cell, things are stable, then it goes to, like rats, it goes to like animals like rabbits and dogs. And then, yes, they also test it on humans, okay? And to see, how it's going to react. And so, yeah, we're always going to be in some kind of experiment, no matter what, because humans are trying to advance. So I'm watching this show called The 4400, and it's based loosely on Scientology. And this is where some of my language comes from, like spores, and some of my like, oh my God, aha, is that, yes, the humans are trying to advance, though they're putting things like vectors and promycin, which is basically an antibiotic. And they're saying that promycin in that movie or in that show, 4400, is causing people to have abilities. And then right now they're having a conflict between those that have abilities and those that don't have abilities. And then figuring out, if taking that shot is like 50-50 chance in that movie. And so they're trying to figure out the ethics behind giving out something that has a 50-50 chance. And so you see a lot of parallels in that show with also our society. Oh God, take a shot, 50-50 chance, right? And so you're kind of seeing the predictive programming out there like on Netflix. And so, yeah, I mean, humans are bioengineered. There are viral variants that are in the Human Genome Database, and that's what all the genes are in the Human Genome Database. And they've isolated everything, and they've also created new and different strains of different viruses, because all you gotta do is splice and dice. I mean, if Wuhan wasn't some kind of, indicator that yes, there are laboratories all over that are playing with the viral variants that are in hosts, that are in human cells, that are in yeast cells, that are in animal cells. And I mean, animals aren't like immune to this. I mean, animals are also bioengineered. Where do you think you got your dog from? I mean, dogs have been bioengineered too. Okay, I mean, that's where you get your mixes of dogs, Labradors. Yeah, well, that's when they go together and they have, coitus and stuff, but it's not always just through procreation, like, a schnauzer and a Doberman. Sometimes you add in an egg, you add in extra genes in an egg of a certain prototype, and then out comes then this type of dog. And is it stable? Does it still have can it have a soul? And so that's the thing. It's of course they have a soul, but is the body stable enough to handle without it dying like in the next 2 years? Because there's some animals that they can hardly breathe, and you feel bad for the pugs because they can hardly breathe. But that was a prototype, and that was also a bioengineered animal, because I can't imagine how that dog would survive out there in the wild. It wouldn't. My dog could probably survive in the wild, but I don't think she'd want to because her personality wouldn't allow it. So if you can understand and accept that, yes, you are bioengineered and the human genome database has all the different viral variants that are in the genes. That's what genes are. They're run by viruses. And so the adenovirus is a virus that causes obesity. And that's why I say you need to reset your body if you're obese, because you may have a bunch, and the adenovirus is like a regular cold virus. So you may have a bunch of adenoviruses running around your body causing the programming to cause the body to program it to hold on to weight. What makes your body do what it does? It has to be run by a specific programming, a platform. Okay? Everybody is run by a platform, a viral platform that determines a specific outcome. And yes, I mean, skin color and hair color and eye color, all these different viral entities determine all the characteristics. Okay? I mean, once I figured that out just a couple days ago, I'm like, oh my God, gene variant. And I see those two combinations of words. I'm like, oh wait, viral variant, gene variant? Let's just call a spade a spade. Well, what's a gene? Well, gene is a cell. What's a cell? Okay, a cell is this, but what runs it? Well, people are like, well, it's just magic. No, it's not magic. I mean, viruses, they are the energy, they are the intelligence, they are the data that is passed from human to human. But it's just like, you can't see it unless it's inside of a host. I mean, it's rolling around, but not just a host. Well, yeah, a host, because it could be in a plant host. It could be in a dog host. I mean, it could be in anything that it's able to derive some kind of life form or life force from, because viruses are not alive. They're the ghosts in our society. That's what it all comes down to. They are the spirits of our society. And they inhabit specific life forms. They inhabit specific hosts. And the more powerful they are, it means the larger the host. That's what the force equals mass times acceleration. The force is not as much, force is small when the mass is small, and so when the mass is small, then the acceleration is small. So when you have a group of people hanging out together and there's a virus that's very new in our population, then you can see the force equals mass times acceleration, and that's a large mass. I mean, a large human is a large mass. You know, large humans in your world, they have a lot of influence. Personalities can be huge, but it takes a huge body to have a personality when you think about it. I mean, I know small bodies have personality, but I mean, like Mary Lou Retton, she had a lot of personality, but she had a lot of strength. Even though she was short and slight, she had a lot of strength and a lot of drive to do all her little flips and trips and all that stuff back in the 1980 Olympics. And so, you know, I'm just trying to write now at this point right now, I'm writing how I can introduce certain terminology like entropy and negentropy. Negentropy is coalescing. Entropy is the disbursement, or not disbursement, the disassembling, which is the particles that are dividing into smaller particles. And so how do you then merge all physics and biology and social studies and, you know, God, and so yeah, right now that's the point of where I'm at, is I'm introducing certain words like life and death, negentropy, entropy, and disintegration and all that stuff. So you understand that there are two laws of life and death. And so biotech will figure out, well, if I add this type of solution to this type of prototype, is it going to like divide and divide and then you have nothing, a smaller particle, or is it going to add more, and then the whole pluses and minuses? And so, yeah, on the 4400 last night, they were talking about positive and negative. They want a world where there's not that positive negative all the time, because that's always explosions. Like I said, the power of two can be relatively productive explosions, or they are unproductive explosions. But no matter what, opposites attract. And that's why you have all these different arguments of for and against. And then you get, then the explosion of people agreeing or disagreeing. Okay? And so I think the future leaders want a world where there isn't all those explosions. So that's why the breakdown of the family, which I can understand. That's why you not so much focus on specific roles of gender roles. Okay? Yes, humans are changing. They want a more peaceful, who is they? You can't even put a name. It's not even a they, it's a they, it's the people that want to change society so much that it is peaceful, not so much at war with each other. Why were we at war for a long time? Because of innovation. You don't get innovation when people are just, not incentivized to do anything. Unmotivated people do not innovate. I mean, look in your neighborhood. You can see who are unmotivated and who are not. The unmotivated people are just kind of just doing whatever they're doing, whatever. They don't care. It's like they just do their stuff. And they're kind of like a drone, There's not too much excitement from them. They're not really producing too much. They're producing just enough to get by, and then they pass away and no one hears about them, right? So innovation comes from very highly motivated people, and innovation comes from explosions. It comes from activity. That's where innovation comes from. And so now that we don't need as much innovation anymore, do we need as many people fighting with each other all the time anymore? No. So then you release a virus. The virus is going to take out like 2/3 of the population. And now we're going to reset people. And this is where, thank God, the J juice comes in. Because yes, you can be in a cured state on J juice. Once the atmosphere is not as dynamic, you could do J juice and cure yourself and also evolve a little bit if the atmosphere changes. But in this environment, you can't possibly put yourself in a cured state when the atmosphere is so dynamic. You could have done that prior to the COVID, but not anymore. Okay? And so you have to understand that, yes, our society is changing. And there's definitely, plans to change the way people manifest their characteristics, their physical characteristics, the way they think, and the way they categorize things, the way they look at the world. And so you have to understand that viruses run it all. This COVID virus runs it all. What gets me is the fact that they have, when someone, feels all these different symptoms, right, and they go to the hospital to get tested for, the COVID, and they find out they have pneumonia. Well, pneumonia is viral driven. Yes, a flu virus can drive it, but also COVID, right? So why do you test negative for COVID but test positive for pneumonia? Well, something drove that ammonia to be pneumonia. Well, okay, so it's interesting just right now what's going on is how people are being categorized. When would they test positive for COVID, and when would they categorize them as having some kind of disease? So yes, so viruses run everything. They are why people have cancer. They are why people have, autoimmune disorders. And autoimmune disorders is the fact you have conflicting programming that's attacking you. If you're not getting rid of that excess programming that's attacking you, then you will be under attack until you pass away. You have to be able to energize your body and release that old conflicting programming, because you're in a cured state of decline. The body's still attacking itself, but then people are taking their cannabis, they just don't feel the attacks anymore. It's like it doesn't exist for them. And so that's what keeps people in a cured state, is the fact that they're on their drugs, alcohol, and doing a bunch of SCX. So there's a million cures out there because people won't do anything about their situation because they don't think they have any control over it. And if they have some kind of control over it, they don't want to change because it's too painful. It doesn't have to be painful. I've been doing this J-Juice mentality for the last 4 years, on and off. And yeah, in the beginning, it was painful. But didn't last very long. Okay, it did not last very long. Yeah, I had to deal with the headaches. I'll tell you what, some of those headaches are pretty insane. And the worst ones were, well, yeah, in the beginning when I felt like, oh my God, when I got off the coffee and got back on the coffee. And so, yeah, all these different pains of your body being triggered by the food supply, it's because the viruses are on their way out the door. And yes, you're when you are eating food, food's going to trigger everything. That's why people have demonized food, because they didn't realize that their food is attached to their immune system. It's coding, and they have viral programming that's on its way out the door, on its way in the door, and there's a fight in your body for dominance, to be king of the mountain. And so, the fact that you guys are alive and you're breathing and you're doing your thing, you are a stable prototype. You do have a predominant programming that can finally, show itself and kick out the excess that could potentially be, it could be tumors turning into cancer. And the heart attacks are just the fact that you have a weak heart because of the viral programming, and you haven't fed your body correctly to reinforce your blood vessels. That's the reason why people have heart conditions. Women have them a lot because they're having babies. When you're having babies, babies take a lot of the substance from you. If you're not actively replacing what the baby took from you, then you're going to be at a deficit. And so, yeah, you bounce back and you look cute, because you had them young, but they still took stuff from you. They still caused deficiencies. And you came into this world with deficiencies. So when you are reproducing on deficiencies, you have more compound deficiencies. And so that's what I'm thinking, like clone and composite. A clone is when you're taking an exact copy of a cell. That's the whole thing with the J juice, is you're cloning your cells. That's called mitosis. When I was on Dr. Phil, I was telling him about, when your skin regenerates, and I was trying to give him that example. I didn't have all the words for it, but I know they're making fun of me, but who cares? I'm like, yeah, that's the skin regeneration. That's your cells regenerating. That's no different than if you were to allow, then if you had a missing extremity, and you can feel and you can deal with the pain, yeah, you could regrow your arm. No different than you could grow an organ. Just like you can regrow the cells on your skin. It's called mitosis. But then, the replication of cells are clones of whatever the state that those cells are in. So if those cells have mutations or things that are like undesirable, you're going to have to change the programming in your cells and have another clone of a better prototype. Everything starts at the micro level. And composite is when you are reproducing at a macro level. So that's sexual reproduction versus asexual reproduction. Mitosis is asexual reproduction, cloning, whatever, right? But when you're bringing in a composite, you're bringing now another chemistry, whoever it is, that you can call them whatever you want. And that is a composite. And then those two, the male and the female, then create a third entity, which is an evolution. And then, yes, you can clone that person. Now, you can't really clone, but you can. This is what happens is in families is that kids are cloned in the belief system. They may not be actually literally cloned, but their belief systems are cloned. So that kid is not going to offer anything new to the world except for whatever the parents already knew. Parents may have some knowledge of the world, but their station in life is pretty predictable. It takes a kid that's been fostered to break free from the reins or the jails of the clones to actually do something very different with their life. So anyways, I just wanted to put that out there that genes are variants, are viruses. They're run by viruses. And yeah. And so when you saw that article that shows there's like nonillion, like 10 to the 31st power of viruses, and they're like, well, why do some viruses, attack you? It's because some viruses are not part of your programming. Why they call it infection? Because it's called upgrade. Every infection you get from a virus is trying to upgrade you, and then you want to stay stuck in your cured state. You don't want to feel any pain. But yet you hold all these predispositions, but you don't want to feel any pain. So then, you won't, so the reason why these upgrades don't take place, the evolution doesn't take place because you keep wanting to put yourself in a cured state of decline, which is why I've been harping so much on my Facebook about stop doing J juice once you've already done a few waterfalls. Now it's time to feel your evolution. And you keep eating the food supply, getting the poop out, blowing your nose as you're pooping. I'm telling you, when I had a hard time pooping, I would blow my nose really hard until I was able to make the air pockets from my nose all the way to my ass, and the body can actually feel like when I blow my nose, I can feel my butt pucker. When I watch my dog, when she barks, her butt puckers. That's what gave me the idea. When I'm watching her bark from the back end, and her butt just puckers every time she barks. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, oh, that's right. Her mouth is connected to her ass. So dogs have a shorter system, so that's why they poop, a lot more, and that's why, they heal faster. She healed in a couple years. It took her from like 2018 to 2020 to actually heal to this point. Now she still has that bubble on her head, but that's like, to me, it's like an antenna. But her personality has definitely changed. She's definitely a lot more playful, and she has made a new track outside. Her routines have changed up. Occasionally she'll do a track on the other side of the yard, but now she's going to the other side of the yard, and she's more interested in smelling over there for some reason. Okay, so resetting your body a few times with the JH is great, and then recoding it. But don't keep resetting your body to equilibrium, because you will not get the benefit of the evolution. You will go into decline. And viruses are gene variants, and they're housed in the human genome database. They have figured out every gene out there, and they're producing new ones. And they're being sold to biotech. And yes, they're being released in different places to upgrade the community. And then yes, they have all these therapeutics to help you adapt to it, though not everyone's going to take to the therapeutics, and not everyone's going to take to the environment. It won't matter if you have a passport or if you don't have a passport. Okay? Viruses do not discriminate. Viruses will float, and they jump from person to person because people do talk to each other. They're oh yeah, social distance. That's not going to freaking happen. And you know it, and they know it. As soon as you go outside, people have coughed in the wind. They're outside doing their thing, smoking their cigarettes, having their little get-togethers, and all of that energy is then rising up above the house and floating to the next neighborhood. And whoever's out there that has a porous house, or like a house with holes in it, or who's outside enjoying their own backyard, are going to be in that cloud, and they'll inhale it, and they'll get all of the energy. I felt it yesterday. My dog and I felt it yesterday. She is like a barometer. She was shaking, and I was feeling the anxiety. It wasn't like a bad anxiety. I just felt like I couldn't concentrate on writing my book. I had to stop. I had to eat a bunch of food. I had to eat some chips and 2 peanut butter sandwiches in a row. And I had to take a tiny bit of a nap too right afterwards, because my body was now coding to that new viral entity. And I gave my dog some ice cream, coconut ice cream, maple syrup, some muffins in her dog dish, and she ate her food and plus, like her dog food and plus the people food that I put in there. And she stopped shaking. Okay? So the sugar is the insulation, and the salt is the energy, and the virus is also the energy. So that's what I'm saying. You guys chill out on the J juice if you've been on it for a bit, because these viruses are just as aggressive as salt. They're energy, they're electricity. Okay? And then you do have a predominant programming. You do have a predominant spirit that has run your body, but it's under attack. It's something else is trying to take over. And that's what counter disease and chronic illness is. It's the battle between the viruses. And you're run by the viruses. That's what's so freaking amazing. And I knew that the ghosts were just people missing the RNA and DNA. That's what's even more amazing, is that yes, if you, for some reason, how can some people speak to ghosts and all that? Well, because they're closer to death. To see actually a dead person, or to feel their presence, you have to have some kind of, alignment in that biochemistry, or have some relationship to that energy. And also maybe you're a low sodium diet, so you're kind of like a jellyfish waiting to be inhabited. And so it's quite interesting. And you've seen some of the videos I used to do on my computer, and we'd see these little orbs floating around. Now that I'm on my phone, I don't see orbs floating around too much, which is fine. I know they're out there. The energy's out there. But I now I'm so strong that I have a lot of electrolytes in me, and I've taken over my body 100%. Nothing else is controlling it except for me and what I put in it and all that. Then I'm not too concerned about being possessed or having another entity try to take over. And maybe people who are seeing the ghosts have the viral entities in them, and it's like a projection. The ghosts are just like a projection, because when you have so many different entities in you, like viral entities, they are different snapshots of memories of people of the past, and maybe even your own genetic line. You're holding a lot of your ancestors' anguish and your ancestors' hopes and dreams, and then also whatever's in your environment. And so that's why people get sick when they go to new environments. They get sick when they get on and off a plane. All those viral entities are trying to take over, and then you're trying to hold down the freaking mountain for. So anyways, that's just some of my musings. All right, I'm gonna go, but happy Saturday, and just chew on that yes, viruses run it all. They're the ghosts in our society. They run everything. That's a lot. All right, bye.